Hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are watching from. How's that for time zones? I know mine are still quite screwed up. Um, yeah, jet lag, it's a real thing. So yeah, there we go. There's our topics for today. Um, yeah, but I am curious also, right there, let me know, where is your next trip? Comment either with the country flag of where you're going, or just an emoji showing what type of vacation, whether it's a cruise, is it a beach vacation, is it a city vacation? Um, or are you just going to work? Let me know. I am curious. I think, trying to think who was away while I was away. Quite a few of you were actually. I mean, I was gone for 5 weeks or maybe just more. Um, oh, thanks, Tammy. So pro tip, if you are going to visit another country where economically things are rather a lot cheaper, ladies, especially for you, that might be an opportune time to go and get highlights and a brand new do. Um, I think I paid 25% of what I would have paid here in Canada to get color, full-headed highlights. Um, yeah, for my length of hair, sorry guys, but this is a thing. For my length of hair, I think probably between $300 and $400 plus tip would be pretty standard. And I think she charged me 90. So, yeah, so Tammy, note to you, when you are traveling through South Africa this fall, if you want to get your hair done, cheap as chips. I'm also now curious about what prices are like to do similar kinds of hair treatments and stuff like that in, say, Mexico, because I've never normally, you get your hair done before you go on vacation. I mean, the last thing you want to do is be sitting inside a hot salon getting your hair done, and when you could be sitting on a beach somewhere. But yeah, it's worth checking it out, especially if you would rather not spend lots and lots of money on things like that. So jumping right in, jet lag. Yeah, got home Monday night. So it was basically 4 nights in London, and then just over 3 weeks in South Africa, which is, I want to say, 10 hours time difference. England is only, I think, 8. And and then back to London was another 3 nights. And also, let's just point out that in Africa, there's not a whole lot of walking because of security and all that kind of stuff. So it's really kind of sitting around, and also a lot of visiting, and we were there to visit family. So that was absolutely fine, and it was great just to sit and visit and catch up with everyone. Um, but then in London, it was all bets are off. Let's go and see as much as we can, as many times as we can, and just go until we can't go anymore. And so each day was between 15 and 20,000 steps handily. It was quite cold when we came through just this past weekend. Of course, coming back to Vancouver, where current temperature is a solid 1 degree Celsius. So not a lot warmer here, which is unfortunate. Whilst we were away, and seeing people and them trying to figure out the accent where we were from, and telling them we're from Canada, and they're like, "Oh God, that must be so much colder." I mean, it was 30 degrees every day in Africa. But looking at the temperatures back home, we were hitting, 15, 16 degrees Celsius, which is, not usual for February. It has been some years. Um, but now we're back to sort of regular winter weather. So sucks to be us, right? But anyways, yeah, so the jet lag, I'll tell you, like right now, I think oh, well, obviously it's 6 o'clock Britain time, so it's getting close to, wind down time. Go and have a cider or a glass of wine and something to eat and kind of tuck in for the night, get ready for bed. Here we are starting the day. Well, actually, I started my day about 5 hours ago. I'm waking up at 3:30 every day, and this is tough. This is a challenge. I think it's easier when you are going away because it's not like, oh, let's hurry, get up and do laundry, or let's put everything away out of our suitcase. It's like, okay, let's go explore, let's go see things that you haven't seen before. So it's a little bit more energizing, if you will. I never find that I have jet lag at the beginning of my trip. It's always the coming home part. So, hey, Louise, how are you? Hope you are well. Yeah, so I mean, we'll see. It's only been 2 nights so far. Hopefully, the jet lag doesn't last too long. We'll see. I have no, I don't. Okay, so for next week, we are same time, same place for at least 2 more weeks, and then off to Mexico again. And so next week, what I thought I would do is something a little bit different, and we would talk about a food review. So I'll show you some of the cool things that we got to enjoy, both in England and in South Africa. And by the way, that was a photo shoot that I did with my niece-in-law, who took that photo. So if you are in South Africa and you want to do a photo shoot, I can hook you up with her. She is really, really good. Normally does like maternity shoots and baby shots and stuff like that. But as you can see, she's very flexible in her abilities. So yeah, next week we're going to talk about food and drinks and all those kind of good things. I do have a couple of little sneak previews for you to show you this week. I actually have a photo, I think, here of both the best and worst food item that we had whilst we were away. Actually, no, I don't have the best one, but that's okay. You'll see that next week. And it is something as well that the recipe, I've never seen it before. I am going to reach out to Sam, the cooking guy, because I know he likes to recreate meals from various different wild and wonderful places. Although his normal desire is to cook foods of more of an Asian influence, and a lot of the food in South Africa has more of a Portuguese influence. But I'll throw it out there to him and see what he thinks. I'm going to try to recreate the menu, or at least the sauce. But ouch, we'll see. More on that later. So, okay. Moving on to the next one. So UK liquid restrictions, or so we thought. So in January, it was announced that all security terminals in London Heathrow, as well as a few other airports in the UK, had now been fully equipped with brand new scanning systems, such that you don't need to take anything out of your bag. You don't need to take liquids out of your bag. And in fact, they have removed liquid restrictions to the point where you can bring in as many containers of liquids that are up to 2 liters per unit as you like. I mean, it's obviously going to fit within your allocated carry-on allowance, but if you want to bring back, so for example, if you are leaving South Africa, and this is a little foodie hint, where a box of wine, how much was it? Like 160 rand, depending on what caliber or quality of wine you're getting. So that's roughly for 3 or 4 liter box, about $12 Canadian. Just let that sink in. So for example, and Tammy, I'm sorry, I did not bring back the butternut Chardonnay, but we'll just have to try it when we're there this fall. And maybe this fall I will bring some back since I'm flying straight through. But really, really lovely and very inexpensive, especially when you consider the price in London for drinks. Still reeling from that one. And also, maybe you just want to bring it home because it's a little bit different. So you can bring it back as long as it's maximum of 2 liters. So the 3 or 4 liter box example would not work. You'd have to put that. You can bring it. You just have to put it in your checked bag. But as far as carry-on goes, let's say you had a nice bottle of wine that you wanted to bring back. As long as it's less than 2 liters, no problem. Put it in your backpack, your carry-on bag. Make sure you've got it well protected, obviously, especially if it's glass. But you can bring that back. Also, no longer do you have to take your laptop out of your bag, put it in a separate container, blah, blah, blah. And I don't really worry about this so much, although I have heard, I knew somebody who, as they were going through security on the other side, they saw someone grabbing their camera or their iPad or whatever it was and trying to sort of take that, casually, that's mine. And obviously it wasn't. Also, another time I had got to the other side of security, and there were 3 of us, 3 boxes or 3 buckets, each with an iPad Air or a MacBook Air. And I kind of make note of who's in front of me if they've got a similar product. And also, I did have mine charged, which is a requirement for the UK. If you are going, you must ensure all electronics are charged. And it'd be fully charged, but it must be charged enough that if they ask, you are able to turn it on. So that's a good thing to know. So anyways, I was able to quickly open it up, see my screensaver, knew it was mine. But where I'm going with the story is going through security was fairly fast. Literally from one side, from the lineup to the other side once you're through, it was about 8 minutes. So it really wasn't bad. But we had a choice of going, this way or this way. And the woman on this side was given the woman, she was hassling her and saying, "Oh, you have to take out your liquids and you have to take this out." And I'm like, well, there's a big sign, like literally this big, bigger than my head, that said, "Leave everything in your bag." Like there was multiple signs. So obviously she didn't see the signs. I mean, she works there. She should have known about the signs. Should have known how the rules work, but nonetheless, so she's delaying everything on that side. So I go to the other side and there's a guy in front of me and this security guard on this side is giving him a hard time. "Oh, you have to take off your jacket. Oh, you have to do this. You have to take this out of your bag." And I'm thinking, like, why don't these people know the rules? Like, it's as simple. You had one thing to do. You had one thing to do. Know the rules. And maybe that was maybe they were suspicious of something, and you throw the person a curveball and see how they react. I don't know. I mean, I don't work there. I don't know their job. But nonetheless, know that the rules have changed, sort of. So just be prepared for that. I mean, as ever, when you travel, you gotta kind of go with the flow, and what happens, happens, right? Oops. Oh, so that leads me to, the airport security, fast or glacial. Like I said, Heathrow, we were in Terminal 3, and that was pretty quick. Like I said, about 8 minutes, start to finish. So that really wasn't bad at all. Not a lot of international flights going out around the same time as us. So that probably made a difference. Also, it was a Monday, not a weekend, when a lot of tourists would tend to fly in and out. So that made a difference. By comparison, 3 days prior, we had left Johannesburg. And we assumed, I mean, how many countries have I flown from in the last, let's just limit it to 5 years? Rarotonga, the US, Mexico, Dominican, St. Martin, Aruba, Bahamas, England. And out of all those trips, Spain as well, out of all those trips, never have I ever been dumbstruck about how long it could possibly take to go through airport security. 1 hour and 14 minutes. Not a lie, not an exaggeration, because we actually timed it. And it just became sort of shocking at one point. It was like, "For real?" I mean, fortunately, we were there quite early because our flight was so late, and we didn't want people to get stuck in traffic who were, dropping us and whatever. Um, but what was happening is, if there was anyone who was mobility challenged, security guys would whisk them to the front of the line. Fair enough, I get that, I totally get that. Somebody had kids, front of the line. Somebody looked pregnant, front of the line. It was to the point where it was almost like if people were thinking about having kids, front of the line. Um, so that part took a while, and there actually weren't that many people that were quickly going through, but it was just moving at a glacial pace. Meryl Streep would not have been impressed, but it's a Devil Meets Prada reference there, which the new one is coming out soon. I'm excited to see that. It's not going to be, brain challenging stuff, but for me, I like it. It's good entertainment. So, yeah, so we've got a group of about 16 people that will be flying through South Africa this fall. And so, note to you guys, um, make sure you leave lots of time to go through airport security in Johannesburg. Probably every other country along the way will be fine. So, just bear that in mind. Also want to that end, I want to talk about lounge pass discounts. So, what's also interesting about the African airports is they haven't really twigged into this concept of, um, screw the travelers for every penny that they're worth. Um, Johannesburg Airport was a little bit more like any of the souvenir stuff was stupidly expensive. You also couldn't really find any tourist stuff or anything that said, South Africa or Johannesburg or anything like that in any of the shops. Trust me, we looked, we tried. So getting souvenirs is a bit tricky. Um, but when you're at the airport, if you wanted a beer or a glass of wine, it's not a lot of an increase compared to what you would pay at a restaurant outside of the airport. And especially, again, for our group or for any of you who are watching who might be going to Durban in South Africa, or any of the other smaller airports, it was the same price as anywhere else. So it's not like Vancouver, YVR, you go there, and if a beer costs you $10, for example, at Sammy J's or Brown's or Earl's or Cactus Club, then at the airport, it's probably going to be 15 or 16. Same goes for food. You're talking about a 40 to 50% markup, which is offensive. And, but it is what it is because it's an airport where, there's nowhere else you can go and you can't bring your own. So that's what I expected. But like I said, in the smaller African airports, the prices were reasonable. Then I also looked at Heathrow Airport. Heathrow has twigged onto this concept, charge as much as you can. So then I was trying to find different places where we could go for, get discounts for, going into a lounge because, why spend the money if you don't have to? And so I looked on a couple of different websites and I did find some options. I found some that were, like roughly £42 per person, which if you think that at any given pub in London, your average cider is about £8. So double that for Canadian. It's a little bit less than double, okay? But so if it's £8, that's about $15 Canadian. Yeah, which, so here's an example. that represents basically $30 worth of drinks right there. So, yikes, right? Um, so I was looking up discounts and I did find one where it was a little bit less to get into the lounge. And actually, I'm glad I did because when we went to the lounge, there was, they have the Plaza Premium Lounge. Those are kind of worldwide. And they did have those available. There wasn't a discount for there. However, there was a lineup to get in. Now, I'd made a reservation. That's really important to do because if you don't have a reservation, these lounges are capacity controlled. And so if you think, well, I don't want to spend 3 times as much for like basically I can spend $42 to get in, which is the same price as 2, maybe 3 drinks, especially if you're gonna get some snacks or, a little salad or a sandwich or some peanuts or whatever. Um, so, yeah, like I said, there was a lineup for the Plaza Premium Lounge. We would not probably have gotten in. We made a reservation for the club rooms, which is part of it's called a number 1 lounge, and the club rooms are an adult-only, airport oasis where you can get drinks and snacks, and they actually have hot and cold made to order food. Like it's an actual menu. They seat you at a table. You have a waiter or a server, and they will bring you drinks, and they will bring you the food. So it's really quite elegant. And like I said, this was I found this for £42, which, like I said, is close to $80 Canadian to get in. Um, and then after I'd purchased that, I did see through a company that does tours and discounts and stuff like that. They're similar to Expedia or a Viator, where they offer things like shore excursions, city tours, all that kind of stuff. And they did have passes for the lounge, which I had never seen before. And unfortunately, they were $43 Canadian per person. So, roughly half price. So, I mean, I've made note of that in every possible place. And I'm telling you, so if you have somebody flying through London and and they're not on a work account where they can just throw out the corporate credit card and get reimbursed. Angelo, I don't know if you are watching, and if you are, if you go to Europe or to London very often, but definitely something to consider because at half price, you really cannot go wrong. Incidentally, if you're not going to London, it's worth noting that they also have these passes for Cancun. And I believe in this case, they were specifically for the Plaza Premium Lounge. And the normal price to go into the Plaza Premium Lounge is 45 American dollars, which is roughly 60 Canadian dollars. And through Get Your Guide, they had it available for 39 Canadian. So not only a discount if you're American, but a pretty significant discount if you are Canadian. I mean, that's $20 per person, which, it all adds up, right? So definitely take a look at that. Definitely worth considering. And then smoking updates. I'll tell you what, I don't remember people in the UK smoking as much as they did this trip, both cigarettes and vapes. But there were a lot of people smoking. It's still quite restricted, but it's funny because, by comparison to Mexico, where smoking's kind of on lockdown, and vaping is not, it's illegal in the country. Yes, I know. We all know somebody who's gone. They took the vape. They vaped the whole time. It was fine. They didn't have an issue. Yes, yes, yes. Also, I know lots of people who speed and they don't get tickets every time they go out in their vehicle. So just because you're doing the wrong thing doesn't mean you are, that it's okay, right? Um, but yeah, it was interesting. And I was looking at the numbers actually. And so here in Canada, well, specifically in BC, I think BC has the lowest percentage of smokers on average out of the whole country. So in BC here, about 8% of the population smokes or vapes, either regularly or on occasion. For the UK, it's 11 to 12%, which would not have been indicated or assumed based on the amount of people that we saw smoking. And then South Africa is 30%. So you can imagine what a culture shock that was for me, especially, by comparison to, like I said, Mexico, where, it's all but been completely shut down. So, it's something to make note of, for a group that's going this fall at the end of the cruise. I've already said, one of the things that's most important is if you are booking a hotel room. So if you're going to go and extend your holiday a little bit afterwards, it's worth noting that there are a lot of hotels that still have smoking rooms. And so you want to make sure, if you're a non-smoker, that you specify that you want or need to have a non-smoking room. Those of you who don't smoke, who've been to Vegas, you'll understand that comment. And also, if you do smoke, then giddy up for you, because you actually can smoke in the room. A lot of the restaurants also have outdoor smoking areas. So it's not like here, where smoking has been eradicated from all restaurants for about 20 years now. But even some of the restaurants in Johannesburg had like indoor smoking areas. So you kind of feel like you're not outside, you're sort of on a patio with an enclosed area, but you're allowed to smoke in there. So, that's a big one to sort of wrap your head around. The fortunate thing is, well, I don't know if it's good or bad. I have mixed feelings on this. But a lot of the younger generation has sort of adopted vaping instead of smoking, which, if you're in a busy pub and a sports game is playing, we experience this. If you look around, I'd say 90% of the people are either smoking or they have a vape. Of those 90% that are smoking some product, I'd say 80% of them were vaping. So you can imagine, if you got a room of 100 people, that's 90 of them. And we're talking like tables side by side, like chock-a-block. This is a busy place, big screen TVs, everybody's cheering, everybody's smoking, everybody's drinking. And if it was 90 of them who were smoking cigarettes as opposed to 10 of them, what a difference that makes. Also, the other thing was weird is, here in Canada, and maybe in North America in general, when people vape, the big smoke cloud thing is a thing here, whereas in Africa, the smoke was almost invisible. I don't know why, but yeah. Hey, Linda. Weird thing is, we noticed many more smokers, vapors on resort this year. Oh, that's interesting, with the new Mexican laws. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so far this year, we've only been to 𝖶આ and that was at a condo. So I don't know what, haven't had a chance to compare that. Give me 2.5 weeks and I'll have a better idea. But I know, like, a lot of people who are addicted to smoking are really upset about the new rules. And so they're, a lot of them are talking about canceling their trip. Or certainly, there's a bit of rebellion, I think, going on. And some people comment and say, well, what if they said there was no alcohol? And it's like, well, but alcohol, I can sit there and drink my face off, and that's not going to potentially give you cancer, or whatever. So, clearly I'm a non-smoker. I have my opinions, whatever. I should keep my mouth shut. But, oh, I guess I showed that already. Suffice it, going to different countries is always interesting to see the differences, and that was one of the differences. and also I'm gonna talk about the food and the beverages. Again, that's coming up next week. We've got the food review, that's England and South Africa. So I'm gonna talk about everything from prices to, sort of love-hate foods, as well as, yeah, like I said, if you can pick up a 3 or 4 liter box of wine for 12 Canadian dollars, life is pretty good. And beers were cheap as chips too. So, yeah, I mean, we got lucky on this trip. There was out of the whole time there was oh, do I have this? We did have a few storms. In Africa, the storms are brilliant, violent. Um, it wasn't so much rain. I don't We had a little bit of rain, but more so it was the thunder and lightning, which was pretty epic. And we went out to do a family photo shoot, and I actually caught a lightning strike. So this is the picture. So it was pretty amazing. You can see, not this was part of a video, so that's part of the reason why the greenery is a bit blurry, but also it was very, very, very windy, so it wouldn't have been a clear shot anyways. But it was pretty amazing. A lot of the lightning there, though, is I think they call it sheet lightning, where it's going across the sky. And holy Hannah, that is loud. But it's just, it's pretty amazing the power and the force of storms to be able to see that. They do have surge protectors. And sort of the thought is if you hear a storm and there's thunder and lightning, do you run out to your through your home and unplug all your major appliances? Because if there's a power surge, it can blow your TV. And I don't mean, like, blow it up, but I mean, the electrics are toast. And, so that's something to consider. Um, I think hotels probably have inherently built-in surge protectors like that, but just as somebody who was, staying there and talking to people who live there, it's just interesting hearing, different things that they have to consider, so and then I got a couple of shots for you. I'm not gonna do the whole, like, slideshow thing, but just a couple of, pics for you of, some different shots of London. We did the clock tower, which has Big Ben inside of it, and that's right beside the Parliament buildings. Oh, you can actually see the what's it called? The O2 no, the Millennium thingy, whatever, London Eye in the background, the round, thing just below Big Ben or the clock tower. Didn't do that. Massive lineups everywhere we went. We went to Buckingham Palace, of course, and this was basically right after the Queen's Guard, or I guess now the King's Guard, had gone by on horses and stuff like that. So we totally just missed that. And this actually doesn't even reflect how crowded it was. It just seemed like um, everywhere you went, you were going against traffic, and hordes of people. I read something this morning that the director of Heathrow Airport or something basically said Heathrow's not congested. It's that people are walking on the wrong side of the hallway. And to that, I'm sorry for the language, but I'm gonna call bullshit because there were people walking everywhere. And it was just busy. It was just busy. And like I said, when you've got security people going, "Oh, take your laptop out of your bag, take your liquids out of your bag," and that if you announce to the world, we've streamlined our program so the process so that you can get through security faster, and now the workers there are going to mess that up. Well, y'all got bigger issues to deal with. Like maybe go back and do a little retraining. Angelo, good morning. Well, good afternoon to you. Hope you are doing well. Thanks for joining the other week, actually, so early. Doing this with the time change is challenging for sure. And unfortunately, I am going to say probably in Puerto Vallarta, I'm going to be operating on a slightly different time than today, typical time as well. Because as you know, I want to show you the resorts. I'll try to get into an area where I'm at a window. I mean, I'm so done with walking around because every time I try to walk around and show you guys stuff, whether I'm on data or Wi-Fi, it keeps cutting out. And I know that it's not fun for you guys to watch. I want to show you stuff, but if I walk around and lose the feed, what's the point of that? So there may be some minor adjustments, but I will get more organized. It's just, it was challenging trying to do all the visiting and then also getting organized with this stuff. And I should have been better organized about it ahead of time, but I wasn't. But we learn as we go. So yeah, what was this? Oh, so that was kind of cool. I forgot that I put that clip on there. So they now have Ubers on the water. So if you wanted to take a ride on the Thames, it's not like you got to buy a $20 ticket or something. You can hop on, you can go for as far or as short as you want. And basically it's just like the tube or the London Underground where you tap in and you tap out at the end. So the price that you pay is dictated by the distance that you travel, and each zone costs a little bit more, depending on the farther you go, the more you pay. So, but it's a pretty cool ride. It goes under the Tower Bridge. It goes past the London Eye and past Big Ben or the clock tower, the Parliament buildings. So it's really quite a scenic ride. Warmer weather is probably a little bit more conducive because then you can sit outside. But if you are inside, then it's if you want to see it, that's great. But for me, it's not great because I want to take a photo or a video so that I can share that with you. And trying to do that through a dirty window is not conducive. Going to Puerto Vallarta on going to, well, currently booked into a condo in Puerto Vallarta for the first week, but I've been watching a lot of Ali Small's videos, and she has some great recommendations for things to see and do in Bucerias, which is immediately north, I should say, of Puerto Vallarta. So it's Puerto Vallarta, the marina area, the airport, then you've got Nuevo Vallarta, and then you've got Bucerias, which from Vallarta Nayarit or Nuevo Vallarta, you can technically walk to Bucerias. It's a pretty good hike, depending on how hard the sand is. And then going to be staying at the Rio Palace Pacifico after that. So that should be interesting. Yet another comparison of the Rios, and I'll also see what their exchange privileges are like, because as we've seen over my travels out of the last couple of years, there is no consistency to who can go where and what time and for what purpose and whatever. So we shall see. Seem to recall that they're now promoting tap in, tap out instead of Oyster cards. Yes, exactly. Good point. Good point. So if you've been to London before, you'll recall that the Oyster card was the only way that you could get around. But because everybody pays for stuff either by credit card or debit card or just through their cell phone these days, you can tap in and out with that. You just have to remember which method of payment you use, because part of the time I was using my the Wise card, the travel card that you can preload funds onto, and then if you lose it, you lost whatever you loaded, or if it gets compromised or whatever. So really handy, really convenient. Did not have to worry. So left London with, I think I had $200 left on the card, Canadian. Spent whatever I spent in England in British pounds by just tapping the card. Didn't have to do anything. Didn't have to tell it to do a different currency, nothing. It just knows. Then we get to Africa. Oh, now we're paying in South African rand is the currency there. Okay, tap, automatic, and you're getting really good exchange rate. And I didn't have to worry about, well, how many dollars of this how many bills do I have in this currency and how many paper bills do I have in this currency? No, I've got what I have left over is in the currency that I loaded it in, which for me is Canadian. For you, it might be American or could be John if you're watching, could be pounds. And that's it. I can take it out of the card and transfer it back into my bank account, or I can just leave it there for the next trip in 2.5 weeks. But it's so easy. The only challenge with that would be tipping, right? So going to the Rio, I will still need to withdraw pesos so that I can be tipping in cash because clearly they're not going to be walking around with a square reader or something going, yeah, oh, tap here to tip. So yeah. Yeah, you can always buy a day pass, but not an Oyster card. Yeah, and you can buy an Oyster card, but why you have to pay to get it, or you pay like a deposit. So that's it's sort of a pain. It was just easier to use our own personal cards and not have to worry about it. And also, like, how much did you preload on an Oyster card, and then how much are you going to get back with the Wise card? And I'll put a link to it down below. Yes, I think I get a kickback or a benefit if you ultimately get one and use it, but it seems complicated, so I don't really know. But anyways, super easy. There are other versions out there, I think. But this is the one that was recommended to me by our investment guy who travels all the time. I don't even know how he keeps track of our money, but I guess he has people for that. And yeah, so he recommended that, and like I said, used it earlier this year in Mexico, 𝖶/. Actually used the card digitally in Cancun last December, and used the physical card in London, England, as well as in both Johannesburg and Durban this trip. So worked like a charm. Easy peasy popsy easy. Louise, yes, the Rio was recently renovated. It's a very pretty hotel. I will give it that. But it is a Rio classic. It's not a Rio Palace resort. So that means you have national brand drinks as opposed to international. So it's going to be, I'm trying to think of a Mexican name, Miguel's brand of tequila as opposed to Don Julio. It's going to be, again, Miguel's vodka as opposed to Absolute or Stoli or Grey Goose. So, that is a little bit of the difference. Also, at the Rio Classics, the should I say quality of ingredients, for example, that you might have at the buffet is a little bit more basic, whereas at a Rio Palace, you might see crab legs, for example, or not so much oysters, but mussels or clams for sure. Possibly lobster on the menu. Actually, I mean, you guys will recall, I've done videos of in Aruba, there was lobster on every single a la carte menu. And I think there was some seasonally at the ones in Cabo. I know they have issues because certain times of the year you can't fish the lobster. And I think on the East Coast, on the Atlantic side, well, I know that's Caribbean technically, but on the East Coast, I think it's called langostina. If anybody knows, help me out on that one. But anyways, there's a little bit more restriction in terms of certain times of year you cannot fish for that. So, but if it's available, and in lieu of that, they would have prawns or something. So, it's just different caliber. Also, the Rio Jalisco, it used to have more of an open concept bathroom, whereas the Rio Palace, it's open concept-ish with glass, typically frosted doors. So in a pinch, if you're staying in a room with your girlfriend or your grandfather or a colleague, you could go into the shower and get dressed. You could go into the bathroom. The bathroom typically has a wooden door, so you have full privacy that way. So, it just depends. But with the Rio Jalisco, I know that that was an issue, and I think I talked about this last week on the show and said, a good friend of mine, he was traveling with his son's family, and in order to make sure the kids all were staying with she was a teenager, but he ended up bunking with sharing a room, I should say, with his granddaughter. And of course, he goes to shower and that's fine. And she, being a teenage girl, is going to, take a little bit longer in the shower and fluffing and puffing and doing the hair and all that kind of stuff. So he goes and sits on the balcony. And of course, all they had in the minibar is corn. Now, they do have a free minibar. That's the same whether you're at the Rio Classic or the Rio Palace. There is a minibar of like alcohol. So he could have taken a couple of glasses outside with it's typically rum, vodka, maybe gin and tequila. Could be wrong on one of those, but definitely always vodka and always tequila. But instead, all they had was like I think 3 little Coronitas, they're a Corona, but they're like a mini Corona. So if a regular one is as big as my head, the Coronita is like this big. So he's like, "Okay, how long are you gonna be?" And of course, he doesn't even wanna, like, look inside because she's in there, and it was like I don't wanna say it was a pony wall because it wasn't like a half wall, but it was, like, half this way. So it wasn't even an enclosed bathroom area. It's like, I don't know, very interesting, and also worth noting that let's talk about the bathrooms for a second just because we have a few more minutes. Um, yeah, and so in South Africa, apparently doors are, disdainful. It's not uncommon for hotels to have either just frosted doors or just partially frosted doors, glass doors, to the toilet and or the shower. It's also common, like we stayed in a condo, and one of the bedrooms, it literally had just a pony wall, so just a half wall to where the toilet area was. So you walk into the room, there's the bathroom, pony wall, toilets right there, doors here, toilets here. And then you've got a glass wall or glass closure to the shower. So you want to be slightly strategic about when you open your bedroom door if there are other people in the condo. Yeah, so you see that was one thing. In fairness, though, all of the hotels that we looked at is about 6 different hotels. Well, no, actually, we looked at I think 6 hotels, and we stayed at one other hotel whilst we were there, and all of them had at least a frosted door. So, they're not completely devoid of doors on the bathrooms. But look, if you're okay sharing all of that with your partner or your travel partner or your friend or your colleagues, whoever you're traveling with and sharing a room with, then it's no big deal. For those of us who have ever so slightly more conservative tastes, problem. And as my husband always says, just give us a door, because you know what? If you want it to be open, you can leave it open. But if there's no door, you got nothing to close. So I'm pro door. Hands up if you're pro door. And if you think I'm being too fussy, give me a thumbs down. Let's hear it from you. I am curious. And then that leads me to England, talking about, especially in some of the older pubs where you've got to go up 3 very narrow, very steep stairs to get to the top of the building where you would find the toilet or the water closet. And more often than not, you literally have to like, the doors are built to swing, if the toilet's here, the doors are built to swing inward, which is the same as North American standards. I think they legally have to, open inward so that you don't swing open the door and, whack somebody in the face with the door. But, uh, I mean, you reach a point where certain toilets, you look at them and you think, "I've gotta, like, literally almost straddle the toilet in order to close the door after myself." So, I don't know. This is another curiosity. Um, eh, like, in out of all the places that we've been to, and it's okay, in fairness, it's not uncommon for us to go and, we reach a point in the day where it's like, "Okay, I fancy a frosty cold beer." But what's going to follow a frosty cold beer is probably a visit to the washroom. And it's almost worth starting up a second YouTube channel just to compare toilets around the world. There is a website. Oh, I should have. I'll try to remember what it was, and I'll put it in the comments or the description below. Somebody started a website about, I think it's called Bring Back the Door, and it's about bathrooms around the world, specifically hotels, and it makes note of the ones that have either no door to the washroom, or a clear door, or a frosted door. And they're just, accumulating these. There were quite a few in South Africa. There were some in London. I think there's about 12. And people basically just write in and they go, "Yeah, I just stayed at the blah, blah, blah hotel in Knightsbridge or wherever, and half frosted door, or glass door, no frosting, or no door." So that makes it useful to sort of plan your trip. Shouldn't be that big of a deal, but it's surprising how, I mean, it's a basic body function. It's not like you can just say, "Well, I just won't go today." It's not really going to fly. Your doctor's going to have words with you, that's for sure. But okay, nobody's commented to say whether they agree with the door thing or not. Door person, don't care. Door person, don't care. Comment below. Somebody throw in a message there, comment. I am curious. So like I said, next week we are up for talking about food and drinks. And, and I had to show you this too. Which one is this? Oh, yeah, as ever, protest in London. Something you really always ought to be aware of, or conscious of the fact that they can have, there can be protests. So, especially around Trafalgar Square, if there's gonna be a protest, it's probably gonna be at Trafalgar Square. So you just kind of always want to be aware of that, like, because the last thing you want to do is get caught up in that. Now, usually they're fairly peaceful protests, but somebody from an onlooker starts beacon off, and it can escalate fairly quickly. So, oh, Christine. Okay, so Louise says yes, she's a door person. Christine, how do you feel about this? I love it. Yeah, thumbs up on that one. Yeah. And then there was one other photo that is good. Oh, I had to show this. Okay, so it rained the one day. We went to the National Gallery, which is free to get in, by the way. And we saw, I have a picture of it. Oh, I don't see the photo. Oh, I do. I think it was this one. Yeah. And you can take photos while you're in there. So that was kind of cool. So that was at the National Gallery. Then the one day we went out, and it was raining, like big rain, big lumpy Vancouver style rain. So we went to I think it was called the Tate Modern, also free because it's a national museum. And so we went in there, and I saw this pineapple piece of work, and it's, depending on the angle you take it from, it's an upside down pineapple. And we've had discussions about that before from cruise ships. So I thought, okay, well, that's something you don't see every day. So interesting stuff. So, oh, and just for fun too, everybody's on the craze of the Chat GPT thing and doing their photos. So, I used you guys remember the Christmas thing where you basically said, show me in a studio with a big candy cane and Christmas decorations and all that kind of stuff. Well, a lot of people jumped on board with that one. So I took that wording, tweaked it a little to do a vacation photo, and this is what I came out with. So that's not actually me. I don't know where that's like AI land, which I'm sure is very nice. Um, can't see well, you can see one hand, and I do have 4 fingers on that hand, so it got that part right. AI is still in the works, learning on that one. But, that's kind of fun. So if you go on vacation and you forget to take a vacation selfie, or the person you're traveling with doesn't take any photos of you, have no fear. AI is here for you. So, yeah, gotta have a laugh, right? All right, so we are back next week, like I said, with food reviews. So I'm gonna have a bunch of photos and pictures and prices and stuff like that, just so you can see. This is gonna be covering both London as well as Johannesburg, and a little bit of Durban as well. So if that's of any interest to you, even if you don't have any plans to go there now, soon, or ever, it's always interesting to hear what things cost around the world and stuff like that. So yeah, that'll be next Wednesday at 10 Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. British Standard Time, because I think you guys don't change till after us. And hopefully we change for the last time this time. Fingers crossed. So thanks for tuning in today. If you guys haven't already done so, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already commented on you're watching this on the replay, again, thumbs up if you're a bathroom door person, thumbs up if you just don't care. And we'll see how the votes tally up later on. So we'll see you guys next week. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you have a great weekend. And we will see you next Wednesday. Bye for now.